Many people believe trauma only comes from major life events, but therapists often see something different: hidden trauma that quietly shapes people's lives without them realizing it. Today, I am joined by Michelle Smith, and she's going to talk about what actually happens behind the therapy couch and what these stories reveal about healing. So, welcome, Michelle, to the stage. Great to be here with you.
Wonderful. Are you
Well,
on?
welcome to the Therapist Takeover. Let the audience know a little bit about who you are.
Yes, absolutely. So I am a licensed professional counselor, mental health counselor in a number of different states in the US: Florida, New Hampshire, Oregon, and Oklahoma. And so I provide virtual therapy services for folks. Specifically, my specialty is complex trauma. And so folks who are experiencing, symptoms from trauma, relational trauma, sometimes anxiety and depression. And I know we'll talk more about this today, but just how trauma can be very hidden and look like other mental health conditions. So that is really the focus of my work, is to rewire those subconscious kind of things that come from trauma, support my clients with true healing and thriving so they can get out of survival mode and try to live their lives again, essentially.
All right. Thank you for such an impactful lifestyle of helping people.
So much. Yeah, it's a privilege.
So, are you ready to dive into this conversation today?
I am.
Okay. So, from your perspective, what is hidden trauma and why do so many people carry it without realizing it?
So I think that this is something that's so important. I'm so glad we're talking about this, Virginia, because hidden trauma can be something that is very misunderstood. There's a misconception that we had to have this major event, which sometimes it does come from a major event, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just these experiences that our body kind of metabolizes as a threat, as survival. And so trauma can come from anything. You and I can be in the same situation, same location, and I can come out with trauma responses, and maybe Virginia wouldn't, or another person would. And so, really, the way that we identify trauma is more about how the body responds, the mind responds, versus the event itself. And so, hidden trauma can come from anything. You went through a major breakup, and maybe that was really traumatic. And now I'm starting to build these protective mechanisms that kind of break down myself because of that trauma. So, the event itself is less important than kind of how our body is responding, if that makes sense.
Okay. What are some of the things you see commonly that how the body responds to let people know they're experiencing trauma?
For sure. So, the thing that can be confusing about this is some of the things I share may be very similar to other mental health diagnoses. And so sometimes it's not always assessed for. And so, folks who come in who have psychosomatic symptoms, maybe they have chronic illness, maybe they have medical concerns, perhaps they've, experienced digestive issues for many, many years. I always flag that. I'm like, ooh, is that a trauma thing, or is that more of a medical thing? So we have things like that. We have kind of these panic attacks, anger, intense attachment from your body and your life. If you're feeling very numb and you're feeling like you're kind of just moving through life, a lot of the time that is a protective response from trauma. So it can look like that. And then a lot of times that trickles into other areas, right? So then our relationships start feeling hard. Our ability to get to work might be difficult. Sometimes you have these high performing people with trauma also who feel like they can get everything done and they're doing all of the things, but are they really engaging in life? Or are they thriving? So perfectionism, this feeling of everything is urgent in my body. A lot of the times those are those hidden trauma symptoms that we really need to think more about, if that makes sense.
Hmm. And then I'm noticing it. I don't know, maybe it's just me or whatever, but I've noticed that the new word hyper this and hyper that has really been becoming more common language because people do over hypersensitive, hyperactive, hyper sensationalized, hyper, and so it's just this word that's hyper that because people are overwhelmed and they're burnt out, and so they're, as they say, functioning at 1,000 and things like that. So I find that for me anyway, I don't know about everybody else, but that word is just now becoming more prevalent in a lot of the conversations I've been having.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
And that's that feeling of urgency in the body. What is hypervigilance? What is this thing? It's this feeling of everything feels like it's very intense. It's survival. And so when I'm going to the grocery store, I'm clenched up. I'm, almost looking at this cucumber as if it's a bear chasing me. I'm not able to kind of relax and be in the body and be calm. And so absolutely, if you're noticing that more of your life is kind of feeling like that, that may be a symptom of hidden trauma.
Good. That's good information. So, what are some common patterns that therapists see in people who experience trauma but learn to function at a high level anyway? What we were just kind of saying about the hyper stuff, right?
Yes, really just deep attachment to overworking, putting too much on your plate, right? Sometimes perfectionism can come from that. And I see a lot of clients too who feel like maybe their trauma has kind of attached them to this idea of achievement. So if I can achieve, if I can kind of be in this role, this is the way that I can get my needs met. And so this feels safe. So I have to keep going, even if things feel stressful, even if I'm abandoning myself. I feel like I have to keep moving in this urgent space, and a lot of the times that's kind of what it looks like when people are high functioning, but still struggling with those trauma responses, right?
hmm Yeah, I had a show earlier that we were talking about people who are always saying they're fine, or people who are overworking and everything, but they're really masking or just keep going and just overworking and over this and that because they don't really want to deal with whatever situation they have going on, whether it's resentment or past relationships, or always having to be the strong one and
Yep,
don't want to appear that they're weak. So that's a common thing that's going on now too. People just going, trying to keep on the strong face so that people won't know that they're going through things, not realizing how it's snowballing, and then eventually you're going to break down, and then it's going to be so hard to manage because you've let it go for so long.
exactly. And that's what happens as we push it down, we push it down. It doesn't go away. I talk about these volcanoes of eruption with trauma where maybe you're okay, you're doing well, you feel like you're doing well, and then out of nowhere something reminds you of the trauma. It might have felt similar, the people, places, things might be similar, and then there's kind of this eruption of a trauma response. And so clients will get very confused. I thought I was doing well. Where is that? A lot of times that means, your subconscious brain still needs that healing from that experience because you've developed this belief system, this protective response from it. And so that's how we target that, is kind of going deeper, if that makes sense.
And then, as they say, you can run, but you can't hide.
Right. You could put a band-aid on it, but there's still a deeper wound. Yeah.
Deeper wound, yeah, that needs to be healed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. And so many people believe that trauma always comes from, like we talking about, the obvious abuse or the triggers, and we know that most of the time it's hidden. So what are some unexpected sources of trauma that people might overlook?
It could be childhood experiences where maybe you learned a certain way of being, right? So whenever I'm emotional, for example, my parents don't give me that connection that I need. And so I've kind of learned this way to kind of keep my emotions hidden. So there can be these what feel like not big situations, but maybe I was sent to my room and I wasn't talking to my caregiver in that moment. And then I metabolized this as this was a threatening situation for me to be emotional. So it can go back to childhood, but we can also have trauma in, adolescence or relationship loss. Betrayal trauma is a big thing that I'll work on with couples where cheating or infidelity comes. And then we're experiencing kind of those responses where, is it safe to be with my partner again? So our safety is essentially robbed when we go through trauma. And that can happen with any major experiences or even minor experiences that our body kind of looks as a threat. And so, it can be a variety of different situations, chronic illness, medical diagnosis, grief, all of these things can really impact. It just depends. It's very person to person, right?
Now, what if I lose my wallet at the grocery store?
Well, if you had a very experience where your body kind of responded, where you felt like a bear was chasing you, Virginia, that may be a trauma experience for you, right? If you were
Mhm.
calm and cool and collected and said, that's okay, no big deal, I get my wallet back. Well, then maybe you didn't metabolize as that as trauma, but maybe that was very important for you. You needed that wallet, and then your body kind of started going into the survival mode. So the event itself, I think we focus a lot on. It's so much more about how was your body in that moment? How was your mind metabolizing this experience, right?
Yeah, that's a good insight right there, because sometimes it does happen that way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And all the things feel like it's piling on top, right? Yeah. I've been there too.
Oh, here's another one too. How about when, like, one day my wallet may have been stolen and I was cool, calm, and collected or whatever. Then I gathered all my stuff back. Then 2 months later, my wallet is stolen again, and then I have a whole traumatic incident that next time, and they like, well, how did I react differently to the same scenario?
Yes. And,
Hmm.
that's I'm glad you bring that up because I see that with a lot of trauma survivors where they're very calm in these, like, moments that are in feel like intense or crisis moments. They're able to do that, and that's a trauma response. That's your body has been preparing. Trauma kinda gets you ready for survival, not ready for living and thriving, and so I'm always preparing for the need for survival. So when survival happens, my body's like, "Yeah, I've been preparing for this. I'm ready. I know what to expect here." But we know is how to live, how to be happy, how to be joyful. Those are the things that I'm helping my clients be able to do because they've got the crisis moments. Absolutely. They know how to do that. Trauma has prepared them for those.
Like normalcy, they've normalized it a bit.
Absolutely. That's exactly what
Hmm.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this is a perfect place for us to have a quick commercial. And while we go to this commercial, this 1 minute infomercial, that's what they call them these days, infomercials.
Love
So
it.
think about, why do you react so strongly to certain situations? And put it in the comments, let us know. And then on the second half, she's going to give us some more tips and tools. And maybe the reflection that you're going to do in this quick minute, then you can see some of those things and the things that she's going to tell us in this second half of Girl Talk Mental Health. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a quick flip of a minute.
Welcome to the Girl Talk Mental Health. Girl Talk Mental Health dares to go where others won't. We unpack the hard truths about mental health, dissect trending topics, and challenge the stereotypes and stigmas holding us back. From navigating the 6 dimensions of wellness to redefining social norms, this is more than a discussion. It's a revolution in how we care for our minds and souls. Ready for bold, honest conversations that spark change? Let's dive in. It's time for real talk with real impact.
All right, so welcome back to the second half of Girl Talk Mental Health. We have Miss Michelle Smith here, and you should have thought about some situations where you felt like you overreacted and then process those and use some of the tips and tools she gave in the first half. Because the second half, she's going to give us more awesome tips and tools. So, Miss Michelle,
Yes.
how does hidden trauma show up later? And this is where it usually shows up at, because I in adulthood. So later in adulthood, how does hidden trauma show up later in adulthood in ways people don't immediately connect to their past?
Absolutely. So that safety aspect is something that is so key when it comes to trauma. When we experience trauma, our safety is taken. And then sometimes later in life, we're able to kind of be aware of that because maybe we've developed some stabilization. We've been able to reestablish a sense of safety. And then this kind of comes back at us. And so sometimes it can look like a grief process. To be honest, that's a big part of the healing journey is grieving kind of the loss of sense of self, the loss of sense of identity, the loss of safety that happened, what could have been, and probably what should have been if you went through a massive experience or something that impacted your body to the level of intensity. So we're grieving that, we're experiencing that. And sometimes clients will come with that where they're saying, I'm looking back and I feel like there's fragments of my memory that I don't have, or I can't really recall a certain area of time. A lot of the times that will trigger me to say, okay, let's assess that. Is there a trauma thing there? Because the brain does protect us in that way. The hippocampus will kind of store those memories differently. And that's why we have to target the subconscious mind when we're doing true trauma healing.
And so, what are the chances? Like, I know I have a lot of clients who don't connect it to past trauma, the things that they go through as an adulthood, but sometimes at least 8 to 9 times out of times, it is something from your childhood that's causing discombobulation in your adulthood, but you just kind of was living life and going at fast pace. So you never really stopped and processed it until you're an adult and the kids are kind of like older and you don't have to run around like a chicken with your head cut off. So now you have time to think about stuff that you never had time to think about.
Yeah.
And that's a phenomenon as well that I've noticed in adulthood.
That's so true, right? Because then when that's a moment of safety that you're describing here, Virginia.
Mm,
Shared that because then I'm able to kind of exhale and I realize, oh, these things don't feel right. There's something, here. I've been distracted. I've been dissociated. Dissociation is a big part of that. And we
that's
all dissociated, right? Sometimes, you're more connected than others. But if you feel like you're moving through life and it almost feels like I'm not there, like I'm there, but I can't remember that drive to work, or how did I get these clothes on, or, I know I bought the shake, but I can't remember when I did. If that becomes very intense, a lot of the times that means that there is a trauma thing there. And when you're so busy, you're not going to notice that because that dissociation is probably pushing you forward as well.
Mhm. Yeah, that's good. So, what about someone who is watching and who may recognize themselves in this impactful conversation we have today? What is the first step toward healing hidden trauma?
So, looking at yourself from a lens of curiosity and compassion is so important. It's so easy with trauma to be so critical of yourself. And maybe I should have seen it before. I always tell my clients, should is a bad word. Like, you can use curse words, but don't use should. If you're if you're shoulding on yourself, that means that your critic is very much there. And so, how can you look at yourself from a lens of curiosity and compassion and say, you know what, this is an opportunity for me to learn more, for me to build awareness around what do I need to be able to heal, to be able to thrive and live the life that I know that I deserve, but I've been feeling so away from for so long. So, building a sense of curiosity, noticing patterns, starting to reconnect with your nervous system. Sometimes it's the most basic things where it's like, are you drinking water when you're thirsty? Are you eating when you're hungry? Are you going to the bathroom when you need to go? Or are you saying, I can get through one more email, I can get through one more meeting, right? That urgency response. We're really trying to turn that down a little bit so that we can notice, that we can be curious and compassionate. And once we have that, we have a lot of components to keep growing and healing.
It is that urgency component. That's good. Because a lot of people don't see that hustle and bustle life as urgent and could be a trauma response. They think that's normal lifestyle.
Right, and it's so encouraged in our society too, do more, achieve more, make more, be more, and there's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with that, but how do you do that from a space of safety and a space of being energized and being excited and passionate versus feeling a survival or a need for my safety to get this? And sometimes that could be very hard to discern, and so I'm working with clients a lot of the times to understand that, what that looks like for them.
Well, what would be some tips and tools you have for the audience today?
Yes. So I really want the audience to know the power of being able to take a pause, the power to be able to notice, the power to be back in your body. And so I've talked to clients a lot and they get frustrated. They say breathing exercise can be frustrating. But the reason that we do breathing is because that's one of the only things that we have to anchor the subconscious mind to the conscious mind. So I can tell you, take a very deep breath right now in through your belly, up towards your breath, and then releasing through the body, and you're moving your breath from movement to involuntary subconscious to conscious mind. And so what I'm trying to help establish is building awareness to that. How can you connect back to the body in a safe way? How can you build more presence in your everyday life? It might be just setting a couple minutes aside every day at first, or noticing certain things, or putting pauses on, timers if you need at first, because it might be really hard to pause that. So it's really doing achievable steps. You don't want to kind of throw yourself in the deep end without a life jacket or a life vest. You really want to think about what's doable right now. How can I grow that? And then over time, you can start building more connection to your nervous system and rewire it.
That's good. So let the audience know where they can connect with you, or if you have some type of special offer or some event you have going on for them.
Absolutely. I would love to connect. I am on my website, www.michellesmithlmhc.com. From there, you can sign up for my newsletter. I send out different tips, different tricks. There's also a free hypnosis audio on there if you want to sign up, and you can get that and kind of hear that calming reset that you might need. That's a good tool. And then if you're interested in therapy services, I provide a free 15-minute consultation so you can meet with me. We can make sure we're the right fit. We could talk about your needs, and we can go from there. I provide individual therapy, couples therapy, intensive therapy for folks who are ready to really accelerate their healing, as well as group therapy. So lots of options based on kind of what you need, all virtual. And any folks in Florida, Oklahoma, Oregon, or New Hampshire, I would love to be able to work with them.
You mentioned hypnosis. Do you do the hypnosis or
I'm a
you
certified,
do? Okay, that's interesting.
yes, certified clinical hypnotherapist. Yes, and I love it's a great way to rewire that subconscious mind.
Is it mostly for trauma, the trauma class, or is it great for trauma for sure? But
Great for trauma, but oh my gosh, so much confidence boosting, weight loss, smoking cessation, all different kinds of things, anxiety, sleep. I've had clients come for all different kinds of things. So hypnosis is a wonderful tool that I love to utilize and yeah, share with my clients. Absolutely.
okay, that's awesome and unique and diverse. So I appreciate you sharing that part.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, Virginia. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, audience, I want you to ask yourself, why do I keep attaching and attracting the same pain? Because healing begins with understanding your story. And if emotional healing matters to you, go ahead and subscribe. Reach out to Michelle, get you some hypnosis going so you will never miss these life changing conversations. And we'll see you next time for another impactful conversation on Girl Talk Mental Health.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Girl Talk Mental Health. Remember, your mental health is your wealth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to at Virginia Del Manning.